All right.
Take 3.
Yes. Welcome to episode 3. Oh, Two Idiots Take on the World. We got a good episode for you today because we were idiots, weren't we?
Truly, yeah.
We made a big mistake that could potentially cost me a lot of money. So stay tuned.
Okay.
Oh, okay. It's not like it's more money than I want to
It's
spend.
very inconvenient.
It's not great.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
not
not terrible. It's not great. We'll
Not
get
great,
there.
yeah.
That's the story we'll end on.
3.6 out of 5 stars. Sorry.
Great show, by the way. Shout out to HBO's Chernobyl. And we also have a, not similar. We'll talk about it.
Well, I will say Chernobyl is sort of a good segue.
Yeah,
into the first day we're going to be talking about here.
No, the first day we're talking about is the day we spent in. Oh yeah. No, it is the first day. Okay, yeah, you're right. Good segue. Both relating to certain fissionable elements.
Nuclear devices.
So yes, correct.
Yes.
And we will try to make that segment as serious as possible because there's a lot to talk about. We are also a little bit tipsy. We had some strong zeros.
Yeah,
so,
they are strong.
One of our friends recommended we try them, and they said they hit like a truck. And oh boy,
I mean, 200 yen to get drunk. It's quite a deal. 200 yen is like $1.50 here.
Can't get that in the U.S. It's like $1.20.
Not even,
$1.30, right?
It's kind of insane.
So we're definitely feeling it. We had the tall boys as well. So this episode is going to be as coherent as we can make it.
We'll try not to make these all when we're drunk.
Right.
But that's just how it's happened in the past episodes.
We don't want you guys to get the wrong impression. We're not alcoholics. We've only drank 3 times in the last 12 days. We've been here, right? We were trying to limit ourselves to drinking 2 or 3 times a week maximum, which we've done so far. It just so happens that 2 of these episodes have been on the days we decided to drink.
He's putting the limit for health, and I'm putting the limit for money. That's how it works out.
And combined, it works out.
Yeah, it works out. So. But for 200 yen a day, I could have done this every night.
Right. All I'll say is, before we get off the topic of strong zeros, I would much rather drink a strong zero at a party than a White Claw.
For sure.
Not to name drop brands or anything like that, but strong zero is where it's at. Tastes better. It it gets you way more in the feels.
These things are pretty great. Because I know Truly, there's Truly Unruly and White Claw, whatever. And those are kind of 8-9%, and they taste rancid. They just taste awful. And they're I don't know, $3 a can or something ridiculous.
It's terrible.
These are a little bit over $1 a can and taste way better and are 9%.
Actually drinkable.
Yeah, it's kind of, and 750 milliliters. So I think it's more than right. They're goated. So
that's our free advertisement for Strong Zero.
Strong Zero.
Japanese. I don't know what you would call it.
It's like a
canned beverage,
hard seltzer.
Hard seltzer,
I guess.
Version of hard seltzer, which is way better than we said anything. Anyway, without further ado, got some good stories for you guys today. As we mentioned, we started off with Hiroshima.
Yeah.
Leaving Kyoto after the last episode. That was our last night in Kyoto.
Yeah.
Immediately from there went to Hiroshima.
Yeah, we checked out a little bit late. We both were very lazy in the morning.
Right.
But they were not too upset with it.
So. I haven't gotten a charge on Airbnb yet, so I'm assuming it's only been 3 days, 2 days.
I think it's 2.5 full days ago. But I know Liam, he was still kind of packing up, and I was like, okay, I'm just gonna try to check out. It's 10:15, and checkout was 10.
It was 10:06, I think.
Yeah, it was 10 minutes past.
Still past.
Not
the
awful,
time,
but
no.
I was trying to speak with the language barrier was definitely a problem, I'll say. And they were kind of confused. I'm like, he's still in there. But it worked out. We were able to check out, no extra charge or anything, and then we walked our way over to the station, took the Shinkansen, or I don't know, we still don't know how to pronounce it.
The bullet train, right?
We took the bullet train all the way to Hiroshima.
Right. And that was, to start the day. Had nice 7-Eleven breakfast, and we went to the lovely city of Hiroshima, which is indeed very, very lovely.
Yeah.
Very pretty, and
it's no Nagoya.
It's certainly no Nagoya, right? Nagoya was probably, I think we both agreed, was the highlight of highlight of our trip.
I don't feel bad. It's a city. I can't feel bad for it.
It's a very industrial, economic city. Very important economically. It's just not very touristy. Hiroshima, on the other hand, it's very pretty. It's on the ocean. It's on the bay.
Yeah.
It is very touristy in a sense. A lot more English speaking there, especially around the Peace Dome.
And Peace Park, yeah.
Peace Park, right.
Yeah.
And if you don't know what the Peace Dome is, it's the iconic building, it's a bombed out building, quite in the literal sense, of this Hiroshima building from World War II that was pretty much at the hypocenter of the atomic bomb dropping, right? It happened, 100 or 300 meters away?
No, I think so. Basically, the hypocenter is, to put things into context for people who don't fully understand, the bomb detonated above the ground. It didn't just go down and hit. They let it detonate at, I think, 600 meters or so.
Something like that.
600 meters above ground, so that, because, the way an atomic bomb, or not atomic, but like, what's it called? Nuclear bomb works, is that they kind of just expand out like a circle.
Right.
So if you explode it above ground, it expands out like a circle and envelops more area when it hits the ground.
Right.
And also it doesn't spread a ton of debris from the explosion and fallout, which would lead to much worse problems for the long term. So
yeah, with an airburst, it's called an airburst, and we're kind of getting into some like nuclear theory, nuclear weapons theory. It's called an airburst. They deal more short-term damage.
Yes.
They deal significantly less long-term damage, which is why Hiroshima is the thriving city it is today, because like there's virtually no radioactivity there now. Like you would expect there to be, like nothing above background. Yeah. So, airburst happens, completely devastates the city, and it happens pretty much right above the Peace Dome.
Yeah, I think there's 160 meters, like, southeast, or southwest or something like that. So, literally, like, as pretty much as close as you can get to the explosion when it came to the buildings. And because it was almost directly below, it actually kind of survived. I mean, the people, unfortunately, who were working there and everything, like, all died. Everyone in the very, very close to epicenter died, but the building was able to remain intact due to the lack of, like, sort of the explosion from the expansion of the detonation.
There was some explanation, but yeah, basically it was able to survive because there was, like, it was just a downward pressure instead of outward.
Exactly.
Which was really cool. It's very sobering to stand there and see this and know the history there. And especially speaking of history, we actually met somebody who was very interesting there.
We did.
Who had a direct connection to that day.
Yeah.
In utero survivor, which meant that his mother was pregnant with him in Hiroshima at the time of the atomic bombing.
I think she was 4 months pregnant.
I think so. That sounds about right.
And I think she wasn't, it's not like she was very far away. It's not like she was like, because obviously the further away you get, the less devastation. I think she was like 1,000 kilometers, something with
1,000 meters.
You said meters, like 1,000,
yeah.
2,000 meters or something. Like within the vast like range of devastation.
Yeah,
she was there and she survived, obviously.
And she's still living, which is 106 years old. She is the oldest living survivor of the atomic bombing of Hiroshima, and her son regularly goes to the Peace Park and gives talks and educates tourists about it. He was talking a little bit about how it's not really talked about in Japanese history a lot. So a lot of Japanese students don't really know. They come to Hiroshima, they learn, and he's more than willing to teach. He also said that the museum has become quite political, and he has a little bit of a
bias.
They have a little bit of a bias. I don't know exactly. I didn't catch the reason why.
Yeah. So I mean, basically, what confused me a little bit. It sounded like almost like he used to work there or something, and they don't let him work there, or he stops working there. But basically, they sort of changed a couple things about the museum, which he claimed were politically motivated.
Right.
Once we went there, I'm not sure, like, I could see reasons for why they made certain changes outside of, like, some kind of political reasoning. Obviously, he's a survivor. He wants his own sort of claim to fame. He has his own blog and everything, and fully support him. He had lots of valuable information. I mean, really cool stories, especially about his mother. Like, it's not like his mother was completely, undamaged by the whole thing. Obviously, being a survivor or something like that, and being a witness to all of that is awful enough. But she also did get cancer about like 15 years ago or something. So
and she survived.
Survived
that. It was crazy. His mom's a very strong woman.
Yeah, she's gonna turn 107 soon, which is just absolutely mind-boggling. He's like 70 something.
Exactly.
It's crazy.
I think they said his father also survived the initial blast and then succumbed later to some but his grandfather I think perished in the initial blast, which very sad. But just hearing his side and like knowing that like there's a living survivor of this event is quite crazy to think about, because it's like we learn about this event in history books and online of course, but knowing that talking to somebody who whose mother was there, I don't know, that like really just like, because it wasn't that long ago.
Yeah,
like,
and it was just completely walked. Speakers walked. We're right near the building, and we see these sort of pamphlet papers on the ground, and we're just reading through it like laminated papers. Yeah. And he just walks over on his bike, or I guess he rides over on his bike. He's like, "Hey guys, like I'm on my lunch break right now, but this is my story. This is some of the facts. You don't see this in the museum. Blah blah blah." He talks about like the political whatever, but like my mom's the oldest living survivor. I was in utero. Like. I have a blog. If you want to really support me, like check out my blog. So,
which we still need to do. We still have not.
I have it on my phone. Yeah. We obviously didn't have Wi-Fi. Like we've not been dealing with Wi-Fi data, so easier said than done. But I did scan the QR code, so I do have it, so I can share that with you. But super cool guy, and learned quite a lot. Literally just from like 8 sheets of paper. Yeah. It talked about. He talked about, United, like U.S. representatives helping out afterwards. We were the only country to have people help out Hiroshima.
So it's kind of, because he basically pointed, because like, he asked like where everybody was from, and it's actually funny, he keeps a record of where everybody is from. I think he goes there like pretty much every day to like this peace park in Hiroshima, which is beautiful, by the way. And talks to people there, tourists, vacationers, all that kind of thing. And like Australians are actually the ones who go there the most.
Just above the United States.
Which
it's kind of interesting.
Makes sense, because Australia is there, but like we were confused by that at first, because we're like, oh well, you would think a lot of Americans would come here, pay their respects, but Australians, like we figure. I think Braden pointed out that Australians kind of vacation in Asia, like Americans kind of vacation in Europe, where it's kind of close proximity. It's easier to do. So and that would make sense. But we'll probably link his blog in this video.
We should.
I think we should just because he's really interesting, really fascinating, and he talked a lot more about like the lead up to World War II as well, which we did not see in the museum. Which, to be fair, the museum is not a World War II museum. It's a Hiroshima bombing museum. But he talked about the United States, Japan, Imperial Japan, the embargo, all that stuff. Really cool guy. Highly recommend it. We'll link his blog in the description of this video. But after that, we went to the actual Peace Museum, because he said he's like, oh yeah, he's talking about the museum, and we kind of figured at this point it was like 200 yen to get into the museum, which is like $1.50. We're like, we have to kind of try the museum just to see like both sides of it, and I thought the museum was well worth it.
And right before, I'll just add a little small thing. There were a ton of kids there on class trip and everything, and these kids asked us, and this was just super difficult to even wrap my head around, but they asked us quite a profound question of like, what does peace mean to you? And how to sticky note, and I tried my best writing on a piece of paper, asking Liam, and I know you added a little bit, but what an incredible class project. Just getting opinions from a ton of different people. I think
there might have been languages there.
Yeah, there were a lot of different languages. There might have been one other English response out of like 8 or 9, but most of it was like Japanese, and it was quite interesting. And these kids really were learning. I did see some kid with something on his shirt, like one like.
There was like some peddlers there,
some kind of clout chaser kid,
some
whatever.
Influencer wannabe. Ironic, I know.
Anyways, there were a lot of kids there, a lot of people on field trips, because obviously it's a pretty historical site. And we got into the exhibit, and there were a lot of people there. I don't think there were too many kids, but there still were quite a few kids, which is a lot for a kid to take in.
It was a lot for. I don't want to speak for. It was a lot for me.
It was a lot for me as well.
It was heavy. But kind of going back to that before we get into the museum, asking what peace is not is a lot easier to answer than asking what peace is. I think Braden and I both struggled answering that, because it's hard to find the words for what does peace mean to you. So actually, for you guys in the comments, let us know what does peace mean to you. Because then we went to the museum, and wow, it was tough. I was almost brought to tears several times at the museum, and it was heavy. Hearing the first-hand accounts of people who survived the bombing and everything, because it's like in World War II, a lot of cities across the world were bombed, right? And, it was not an abnormal thing. Like, in terms of death toll, I think the firebombing of Tokyo, which was also a tragedy, I think produced more death. But think about this bombing that was just so new and novel was, and I don't want to say novel, but like so just unbelievable, was one bomb caused all this devastation, right? People had no really indication as to what was going to happen, right? Like if you can put yourself in their shoe, you're just going about your normal day, and all at once in a blink of an eye, your entire life is just completely upended. And just hearing the accounts of that side of the story of just the innocent civilians who were affected by this, because obviously in the U.S. we're taught about World War II from the U.S. perspective, but hearing this story from the people on the ground who were affected by it, who lost loved ones, who had loved ones die, and whose children, whose parents were dying in their arms from these horrible burns and everything, was just really sobering. And if you're ever in Japan, highly recommend going to this museum, because it is quite eye-opening, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have a lot to add, but yeah, the stories were just heart-wrenching, and they had a lot of artifacts from the people who experienced it, also just some survivors as well. But I think maybe the thing that impacted me the most was the children's clothing. They had early on in the exhibit, they had a group of 20 or so children, because interestingly at the time there was a mass building demolition project going on for the city, in the sense of renovation, and teachers would get their their students to help demolish these buildings to help out with this project. And they had different areas, and at one point there was a map that kind of showed where those areas were. So obviously, I mean, there's just these kids outside working with their teachers on demolishing these buildings right near the epicenter of this bomb being blown off. And there is quite a bit of a difference in impact from being just straight outside to being indoors. If you're outside, it's a lot less likely that you would survive at first the immediate impact, but also past a day, a week or so, a day to a week. But people who are maybe more inside and sheltered have ended up experiencing more lingering effects later down the line from the radiation. But it's just super sad to read the stories about these kids, and just to even see personally, just to see their personal items of the little notes that they had. It was awful. It was just so awful. And I mean, I'll mention this now. Don't have to go too much into this, but it did remind me quite a bit of Gaza, which, I mean, I know right now as of, what is it, January
20th.
January 19th, when we end up uploading
19th,
January 19th, 2025. I know there's a ceasefire, but in general, just hearing stories about that and all the children who are getting bombed and killed in Gaza as well, and all those different stories, it sort of rang very similar. And it's crazy. Obviously, we're 70 years later, almost, to the day of, a couple months off, 70 years later, and we're still, unleashing these, horrors upon these children who have so much life left, and just visually seeing the life lost and the potential that was lost in these children was just really hard to get over. So that was probably the most impactful part for me. But even just hearing the stories about, the important thing was they didn't know it was an radioactive bomb until after the war. Japan kept that kind of under wraps, and the U.S. as well. They all tried to kind of keep it under wraps, what type of bomb it was. So people had no idea what was going on until a couple weeks afterwards, when they were like, "Oh wow, this is." It was the first time as well on humans, so people really had no idea what was happening to them. They'd be fine, and then a week later they start puking and black spots and all this stuff, and then boom, they're dead. It's just
and as well, one of the things that really struck with me was because all these people who were burned had already suffered so much. started raining after after a certain time, a couple hours later, a black sticky rain, and they go into great detail describing this rain. And this rain is actually radioactive fallout is essentially what it is. But the people who were so thirsty, they looked up and started drinking this poisonous, foul, rancid water. Ingesting this radioactive material. Just really terrible, really sobering. Nuclear weapons are just awful. I mean, I don't think that there was anything controversial with saying that, and it really is just a sobering experience going to Hiroshima, going to the museum, and just reading all the testimony really counts. And highly recommend it if you are ever in Japan to make your way down to Hiroshima, because it's a beautiful city. Outside of the fact of the history, and then of course the big event, the atomic bombing is worth learning about, and just hearing that side and the people on the ground in Japan, the civilians who tragically lost their lives to a terrible weapon. And I remember watching a video on YouTube one time describing nuclear weapons as cruel bombs, and it was interesting because aren't all bombs inherently cruel, but there is something inherently just extra cruel about a bomb that keeps killing after it's detonated.
Yeah, and I talked to Liam about it a little bit afterwards. We watched Chernobyl, and we've talked about that, but
which is great HBO show, by the way.
But I mean, radiation and the effects of radiation at extreme levels is maybe the scariest thing to me, because it's a very unseen, unknown cause of death, because it just goes into your blood cells and starts causing damage that you wouldn't even know until it starts manifesting itself through some ungodly symptoms. And the experiences you
trigger warning, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, the experiences you feel once it's past the point of no return, in a sense, where your blood cells start attacking itself. Maybe they even start boiling over, and it's just awful, the stuff that radiation can do to the human body. And that was the hardest part for me, outside of the children. Reading, I mean, at least when it came to physical sense of reading these stories about people, and weeks later, months later, about the symptoms they were developing, and it gets to me in a way that I feel awful. It's scary, and it's terrifying to even fathom and just read these stories of the symptoms, and just even imagine what they were going through, because they didn't even know what they were going through. All they knew that their body was failing them, and in one of the most painful ways possible. It was just awful to read those stories.
Radiation is...
It was just... It was a really difficult experience, and I know afterwards we were luckily we had the train ride afterwards, but I was kind of silent for a long time. I didn't really know what to say. It was hard to even just be okay, let's move on to the next thing of the day. I know scheduling it made the most sense, but it was just damn.
Yeah.
Now what?
Right.
Can I even go back to enjoying my trip?
Right, exactly. No, it's, I mean, it is very, very sobering. And, of course, Braden and I know, and I'm sure everybody, or most people who are watching this, know about radiation and how scary and dangerous it is. But, yeah, I mean, these civilians and these people had no idea what it was. I mean, even up until the 1960s, 1970s, most people don't know about radiation and the effects of radiation. And before we actually went on this trip, I actually watched a series by Kyle Hill, another really good YouTuber on this site. So shout out to him, about radiation and these things called orphan sources, that basically that people just stumble upon radioactive sources, oftentimes in lower income countries, where there's just lesser regulations.
Yeah.
And man, it's so sad hearing about it.
To ask, I know I read a story, awful, scary story of these men who were transporting lumber or something in the woods, and then they just sat by this rock.
That was one of them. That was one. And then there was
it's all just
the Goiânia incident in Brazil, which I won't describe too much because that's not what this is about. But Kyle Hill has some great videos, great informative videos about both of these events. Highly recommend. And radiation is a part of daily life. It actually does have benefits: medicine, power, energy. So like
chemotherapy,
like all like radiation therapy, all those things, X-rays. So radioactive sources do exist, and that's how they kind of become orphan sources when the disposal of them is not properly regulated and overseen. So if you're ever curious, want more, we'll go check out Kyle Hill's series on this stuff. It's really informative, really knowledgeable. But after that museum, that definitely set the tone for the rest of the day because we did do other things that day, but it was definitely we were still in Hiroshima, and the cloud of just the history and just that museum just definitely hung over us, I think.
Even just walking around afterwards and just recontextualizing the park itself, because the rivers, I mean, the geography is still the same.
Right.
The building's still there, but a lot of stuff is rebuilt, but the geography's still the same. And, they were aiming for a specific portion of the city near these rivers, and that's right where the park is now. And just fathoming the fact that this bomb was dropped, like, right here. Like, it was like, oh my God, like, 70 years ago, a bomb was dropped right here and just completely upended this entire city, and now we're standing on the same soil in the same area.
Right.
If we were here 70 years ago, we would have experienced it. It's kind of mind-boggling to wrap your head around. So while we walked to the next train station, we were kind of silent and just like contemplative. It's just, at least for me, and I know we were both silent, but it was just like, wow.
It's moving for sure, and it's like I said, definitely recommend it. Even if you're not a huge history buff, it's well worth the visit just to understand and just the kind. I mean, you can't really understand. Like that's the thing. We're talking about understanding this and everything like that, but unless you were there, you can't really contextualize what the hell that is nuclear fire really is. And let us all hope that these terrible weapons are never used ever again. Yeah.
Which, one last part before we move on to the next thing. Towards the end of the exhibit, there's more history of nuclear weapons and detailing how they were used again, and like Marshall Islands. It's just awful.
Atmospheric testing.
Awful in Russia, Marshall Islands, United States, and all the effects of that. Whatever.
That's a whole nother topic thing. About not to like but like there's a really good section about like nuclear weapons, hydrogen bombs, the arms race, and basically the principle of nuclear weapons, where every single nuclear armed state in the world doesn't want there to be any more nuclear armed states, whereas every single other non-nuclear armed state wants to either be under somebody else's nuclear umbrella or wants to develop their own nuclear weapons. So that's some very interesting geopolitical discussion that is way outside the scope of this video. We two idiot Americans exploring take on the world. We're not diving into complex geopolitical issues. But it was just it definitely put a lot of things into context, I will say.
So we then took the train to Miyajima, which is an island right near Hiroshima.
Famous island. There's a famous site there.
So there's a lot of like religious temple, shrine, gate, and the pagoda.
Right.
A lot of like religious buildings there. But we actually were able to take a 10-minute JR ferry across, which is pretty cool. I mean, you can actually take your car as well if you're planning on driving. It's
proper ferry. I mean,
it's like... proper ferry. We took that over, and at this point, it's like, I don't know, 5:30-ish.
Sun just set.
Sun just set. It's pretty much dark, and we get over, and what do you know? There's some deer just roaming around, and kind of scared the crap out of me eventually. There's around the time we were there, I mean, I was either scared or flabbergasted by these deer just randomly just appearing. Right outside the Lawsons, which is one of the three major fast food, or what do you call it?
Convenience
store
yeah.
chains
I
like
think they're
7-Eleven.
called convenies or like convenies or something like
Yeah. So we never ate there. We ate at 7-Eleven quite a few times.
And
Family Mart once,
yeah.
and then Lawson's we never been to. So we went to Lawson.
Trinity of convenience
Yeah,
stores.
exactly. And we got a couple different items and tried that. The chicken was a little greasy.
It was pretty greasy. I think both like my hands are definitely like dripping with
Yeah,
oil.
yeah,
It was like that was. I'm a big greasy like fried fast food person. This was too greasy even for me.
Yeah.
I was like, ugh.
Yeah.
It was good. It just was like
Yeah. So we tried Lawson's, pretty good, but I think we both agree it was our least favorite of the main three.
7-Eleven, Family Mart,
Yes.
Lawson's. I think is what.
Yes. And then from there we walked to those different areas. So there was the gate that we went to first.
Right, the famous gate. I have it here. The
Otori Gate?
The Otori Gate, which is
Yeah.
like if you look up pictures of like Hiroshima today, you see like the big gate in the water. That was that. We should not see it in the water because it was low tide.
Yeah, which was kind of interesting. We were able to walk down right next to it.
So I mean, it was a really cool experience that I was not expecting, and super cool at night. Just seeing like all the surrounding areas, because if you know about the geography of Hiroshima, it's in a bay essentially, and you know there's like some now like outlying communities. So you have like the main city up here, and then you have like the outlying communities like kind of spiraling or like trendling down from the city center. And yeah, like it was, anyway. Hello, welcome to part 2 of episode 3. We ran into some issues in the last one. We are no longer in Osaka. We are actually in Manila. We've been to 2 countries since that last part. So there's a little bit of a weird jump there, but we're gonna like just basically tell you, recap what we did, finish out Japan.
Yes.
And then the next episode will actually be about Seoul and a little bit about Manila. So, with that in mind, we're talking about Hiroshima, we talked about the Otori Gate, and we left off, we were just about to go to the shrine that was nearby.
Yeah.
It was closed, but the 5-story pagoda was not, it was all lit up. So we climbed up a hill, we saw the 5-story pagoda, took a lot of pictures, really pretty at night. Kind of eerie. I know Braden mentioned that it was a little bit eerie, he was a little uncomfortable.
Yeah, so they're all in like the same little area, so I know there was another like temple we wanted to go to that was quite further away that we didn't get time to go to, but luckily the 5-story pagoda still had some entrance that was open, even though it was pitch black at night, but it was lit up, which is really pretty. So then from there I kind of made a little bit of a blunder where we basically had to take this ferry back to Hiroshima, like the land, because we're on an island right now. And from there, there's a JR train that takes us into Hiroshima, where we can then take the bullet train back home. But I thought if we took a certain ferry, we would have like 15 minutes to then get to the JR rail and then hop on the next train. However, as we were walking and we were like still like 3 or 4 or 5 minutes away, the ferry that we were supposed to be taking was leaving. And I think that was because we spent so much time trying to get to this 5-story pagoda and walking around, and there was a deer in the middle of the night that scared the crap out of me. And we'll get to more friendly deer
we definitely
later.
Will. Oh dear, indeed.
Yes, but that was a little bit of an introduction, that island with the deer on it. So we had to wait, and instead of having about 15 minutes once we got off the ferry, we now had 1 minute.
Yes.
And I think we did the math, it was like 200, 300 meters away.
It should have in theory been possible to make it, but we had to like rely on the fact that the ferry would get in at the beginning of the minute and the train would leave at the end of the next minute. And that didn't really happen.
No.
Because we started running and the ferry, the gates come down and we basically start sprinting.
Start booking it.
And we get to the halfway to the station and we see the train that we're supposed to be on just leaving, and we're like, oh no, that's so fortunate. But it kind of worked out because we hadn't really eaten all day, and there was a dish that you particularly wanted to try, and one of our friends recommended that we needed to try this dish, and lo and behold, a restaurant that specialized in this dish was right there.
Right there.
You want to talk more about that?
Yeah, sure. You guys already know this, so the pronunciations are probably awful with everything, but it's like okonomiyaki, I think, which is sort of like, it's like a mix between hash browns and pancake, I would say. like
Yeah,
like the hash
kinda.
that are like because it's kind of just chopped up bits
Yeah.
of what was like kind of like noodle tempura and all that stuff, but it had like pork in it, egg in it. I'm trying to think of the other things.
Tempura, you said.
Yeah, I already
like
said
some
tempura.
noodles.
Yeah.
Pork. Yeah, it had like some dough on the bottom.
Oh yeah, there was some dough on the bottom.
Wheat-based dough.
So they made it for us, and the thing is, you know, we were like, okay, let's get this food, but at the same time, we had like 35 minutes from then for the next train.
Yeah.
So we ordered the food, and it's like 15 minutes to the next train, and we know we're right next to the station, but it's, you know,
Right.
we're still like, oh crap. So the food comes out, and we just start chomping away.
Oh, it
and
was- yeah.
luckily, they made it easy for us
Yeah.
to just devour it, because I think we both loved it. It
Yeah,
was very good.
It was really good, and it's kind of cool. I'll add a quick aside. They put it on like a sizzling like
Yeah.
tabletop,
Yeah.
so it keeps warm and it like keeps cooking as you eat it. So you kind of like eat it off of like this grill in the middle of the table, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah. So that was really, really good. And luckily, we had about, I think, like 3 or 4 minutes
Yeah,
left.
we had enough time.
And by the time we got to the train station, all of the trains were delayed some various
Yeah.
amount of time. So we did get in time for a train that showed up like a minute later. I don't know if it was, I think it was like a minute or two before it was supposed to.
Right.
But we
There
were
was like
there.
a train that was supposed to be like 20
Yeah.
minutes ago,
Yeah.
right? So it was like.
So we made it.
30 minutes ago, so-
And we, you know, then eventually made it back all the way to Osaka that night. So, you know, pretty nice day in Hiroshima, pretty impactful day in Hiroshima.
Yeah,
And we then went to bed and got ready the next day for our next day trip, which was Kobe at
Right.
night. But
Yes.
we've been in Osaka now for a little bit, kind of. So we wanted to explore the city a little bit during the day. So I mean, I can let you go
Yeah.
from there.
So we went to this American like shopping district, which was pretty cool to see. You know, just a lot of like American style clothes, American. Like I think there's a lot of like secondhand stores, like thrift stores and stuff.
Yeah, lots of thrift stores,
Um,
and it's not like necessarily like it's American street. wear.
Yeah, it's not like an American like district. It's like an American fashion district,
Yeah.
right? And we were actually there because we were waiting in line to get brunch, essentially, which was like this egg omelet with rice in it. Again, I don't remember the name. I'm not even going to try to
It
pronounce
was
it.
like onamori or something,
Onamori.
something like that.
Onamori rice or something like that.
Something like that.
It's really good. And so, like, while we were waiting, we just went to this shopping district, and we saw something that really hit close to us.
We did. Yeah.
So, for those of you who don't know, both of us got both of our degrees from a wonderful school called Georgia Tech. And I think we can say that now that we're out of it. But going through Georgia Tech, it was like, oh man, we cursed it so much. But now that we're a little bit removed from it, both of us have bachelor's and master's degrees from the school. So that's kind of the background. And lo and behold, in the middle of the street in Osaka, we see a Georgia Tech jacket.
Yeah.
With Buzz there.
Yeah.
Buzz, who's our mascot,
Yeah.
is saying Georgia Tech, and we both got excited because we're like, oh my gosh, like Georgia Tech, like represent all the way over here in Osaka.
And we've definitely seen a lot of like sports memorabilia, like Yankees, all that stuff,
Yeah.
like for sale. But I don't think I've seen any like university memorabilia up until that point. Like people were wearing
Yeah.
stuff, but nothing for sale. So it was crazy
Yeah.
that at least at that place that was the only university or institution memorabilia. But like it might have been the only U.S. college institution memorabilia on sale we've seen like this entire trip. So for it to be Georgia Tech was kind of crazy.
It was.
I think just goes to show Buzz, best mascot in all of college sports. But
I was actually thinking about it, and as I was like thinking about why it might be, and I mentioned something to you a little bit later in the day that I almost studied in Osaka for a time. Like summer of 2020, I was supposed to do a program through Georgia Tech in Osaka, but of course, summer of 2020, everything, the world shut down, pandemic happened, so that study abroad ultimately got canceled. I think that Georgia Tech thing might have come from the students who came in years past. So I think it's a little bit of an interesting aside. I just realized why there might be Georgia Tech merchandise or some type of exchange like that. So that's kind of my reasoning for that. But yeah, after we got the omurice, we explored Osaka Castle, which had like a museum, and we learned all about this period of time in Japanese history. and the view from the top of Osaka Castle was really cool.
Yeah.
Really nice panoramic view of the entire city and the surrounding areas. And yeah, it was just pretty awesome. And if you want to explain more about why that specific history, that specific period of history means a lot to you, I won't stop it.
Sure, I mean, I guess. So in AP World, like sophomore year of high school, we had to do this project on like different rulers in the world. And I'm pretty sure, I know my guy was Tokugawa something, but I'm pretty sure it was Tokugawa Ieyasu, which I'm probably pronouncing completely wrong. And you know, my boy, it's not the first time we've seen history about my boy or about the Tokugawa shogunate, which, you know, it's always been one of my favorite little trivia things, you know, just throwing out like, what was your favorite period of Japan? You know, and people are like, well, I'm like, well, mine clearly was the Tokugawa shogunate, you know, like, come on, like, it's the greatest time in Japan to be alive. But yeah, my boy there, he fought a war like a couple days, you know, in the fall and the summer, of that year, that ended up at Osaka Castle, where they ended up trying to defend Osaka Castle. And, you know, my boy was victorious. This was right before his reign, but there was a family that used to live there as well, and there were a lot of history on that family specifically, and there are also a lot of old relics from that time and that period that, you know, may have survived the castle. And then lastly, they found an excavation of the old castle, because there was a castle that was built even before the current Osaka Castle, named after this like family, which then got like burnt down, destroyed. Then the next family built it up kind of to like represent the previous one and try to like replicate it, but also not exactly to the T. So there is kind of some information about the differences between the two castles based on excavations they made. So that was some really cool information. Yeah, I don't really know if there's much more to talk about at Osaka Castle, but
really cool. Nice museum.
Really cool.
Cool view from
Definitely
top.
worth it.
For like, and we also found out, so this is something as well.
Oh.
If you have the JR Rail Pass, we got a discount.
Yeah.
So this is once again shouting out the JR Rail Pass. It wasn't much. It was like I think 50 yen or something, 60 yen. But it begs the question as to how many discounts we missed with the JR Pass. So if any of you are traveling to Japan, be on the lookout for that. Let us know if there are any, you know, discounts, additional discounts, and additional like, you know, promotions you get with the JR Rail Pass. Because, you know, I definitely plan on coming back, and if you get discounts with it, it'd be great.
And who knows, that place with the, you know, the thrift shop with the Jordan Sack jacket, maybe they would have taken a discount with our bus card.
Could have. Who knows?
You know, but maybe they took bus funds.
I still have it.
But from there, we hopped on the train to Kobe.
Kobe, yes.
Kobe.
And Kobe is known for something.
It's known for their beef.
Yes.
I mean, Kobe beef, Wagyu beef.
Oh, yeah.
They basically treat these cows like kings and queens while they're alive.
Oh, yeah.
Giving them massages and baths and all this stuff. Like, you know, to be a Kobe cow would be great before the untimely accent.
Yeah.
But man, it makes for some good beef.
It does. We were wandering on Kobe. We found out on Reddit, of all places, that there was this place in the Kobe Chinatown with Spider-Man on the roof that served really good Kobe beef. Because all the other places we were looking at, for an aside, Kobe beef is pretty expensive. I mean, you can get like really good steak in the US for about 60, 70 bucks. It's about what you'd get for a good Kobe beef meal in Japan.
Which
So
is
just
relatively reasonable.
considering the fact, right?
Yeah, it's just unfortunate that our budget is doesn't exactly allow for those type of meals.
Exactly.
But
so it's not super unreasonable. Like if you're going to go out for a nice steakhouse dinner in the US, you can definitely go to a nice Kobe beef experience. But we wanted something a little bit more budget friendly, and luckily there are options for that.
Yeah.
We went to this place, we found a Reddit with Spider-Man on the roof
Chinatown.
in Chinatown, and we got like this platter of Kobe beef with a grilled pineapple as well.
Yeah.
Everything was just excellent.
Really good.
And I can sing the praises all day, but we'd be here literally all day.
Yeah.
So I'll keep it short and sweet. Really good, really tender, really juicy, melting in your mouth. Pretty much exactly what you would expect from Kobe beef. I was not disappointed. I definitely understand the hype.
Oh yeah, it's really good. And to think, like, I mean, that wasn't even close to probably the highest grade, and you know, like, I could have kept eating that all day.
Oh, yeah.
It was really good.
Delicious.
So, and one other thing that we hadn't tried up to this point was the candied fruit on a stick.
Yeah.
So we got candied strawberries as well, which pretty good.
Yeah, I liked it. I thought it was interesting.
Yeah, it was a little hard to bite through. It was kind of like a candied apple, obviously, but I thought it was pretty darn good. Pretty darn good.
Yeah.
And another thing at this point is we have one more day, and we're running out of yen.
Yeah.
So, as we've mentioned, a lot of stuff in Japan goes by cash, and ATMs, you have to pay a withdrawal fee, and often you can only withdraw a certain amount, a certain minimum. So we were trying our best here to keep just enough yen for our last day.
Right. And well, the trip, last day and trip to the airport.
Yeah,
Specifically.
exactly.
The last 2 days, and we thought we had calculated this out correctly, where we were able to do that, and spoiler alert, we didn't, and we ran into some problems. I think in the last video I also led with that. I was like, we ran into some issues. I made a little bit of a mistake, which turned out not to actually be too terrible of a mistake. I only lost. We'll get there. But after the strawberries, we actually found another place with Spider-Man actually on the roof. The place we went to had Spider-Man on the wall. So this place also served Kobe beef. We don't know if it was the correct one or not. But who knows? That one didn't look like it had the pineapple, which I think the pineapple was worth it. After that, I started feeling pretty tired. I was it was catching up to me. At this point, we'd only eaten a little bit of Kobe beef, some strawberries, and the omu rice that we had at the beginning. So I definitely started feeling a little bit sluggish and slow, I needed food. And Braden mentions, he's like, oh, we get 7-Eleven food. I was like, bruh, no, the last thing I want to eat right now is some type of 7-Eleven fried chicken. That just is so unappetizing. I want something substantial, where there's protein, meat, and veggies, and rice and something. And I had this very specific thing in my mind. And we're just wandering around the Market Street in Kobe, and eventually all these restaurants are closed, and I'm like, crap, am I about to eat? So the 7-Eleven just sounds so bad right now. And lo and behold, there's this place that serves Japanese set meals that looks really good, that catches my eye. And I don't know, this was the universe aligning, but this place was exactly what I had in mind. I was the meat was check, there's veggies, there was rice, all the things I would want from a meal right at that point, check the marks. And it was pretty good. I think I got a steak or a beef and chicken combo, which was excellent. I think it had some type of nice sauce on it, bean sprouts, miso soup, rice, some type of sriracha based sauce, I think it was. It tasted like sriracha, so it was good. I enjoyed it. It hit the spot for sure.
Yeah. And I know I got some, it was fried, kind of fried-ish chicken, panko chicken almost.
Yeah,
and then
katsu.
Yeah, and a pork kind of side thing as well with tofu, and we looked at miso soup and everything, but mine was pretty good as well. It was a pretty solid place. I think we both were pretty satisfied. Definitely hit the spots. We still were kind of craving some healthier alternatives while also getting some meat and heartiness in our stomach. So it was great that place was open, and from there it was kind of late, so we had a couple other plans for things to do in Kobe, checking out the bridge and walking around that park, but I think we both kind of forgot about that. It was kind of just, where's the train station from here, how do we get home? And it was 9 o'clock or something.
It was late.
We were just tired from the day, because I think at this point of the trip, it was starting to catch up to us, just the nonstop day after day after day after day doing things.
Yeah.
I know we talked about it a little bit that morning. Getting back at that night and just kind of relaxing, and before one last final full day in Nara, which we were gonna take to its full advantage. We weren't gonna just try new foods and try something adventurous. No. We were gonna eat what we wanted to eat. Mm-hmm. If they had Popeyes there, man, I might have had Popeyes. But we'll get to what we ended up eating. I mean, I can let you get to that. But we woke up relatively early-ish, I guess, to go to Nara. And at this point, we don't have our JR pass anymore.
Right.
So we're calculating how much yen it is for these fares to Nara and back, and we were planning on going to Osaka that night to just kind of one last night celebrate, maybe even drink a little bit if we wanted to or not. We'll play it by ear, but so we take the train to Nara.
And one of the things in Nara, sorry if there's noise back here, we're in the middle of Manila, really big bustling city, and we're outside, so apologies if there's noise. We go to Nara, and there's a place we wanted to try out. Speaking of really good food, a melon pan with ice cream place. And if you don't know what melon pan is, it's like this Japanese like bread with like cookie dough. I read it has like cookie dough baked into it somehow. So it's like baked cookie dough with bread dough, and you get like this awesome bread.
It's got like sugar on it.
It's so good. It's so good. It's so dangerous.
Yeah.
And when you serve that with ice cream, like I'm a sucker for sweet food anyway. Ice cream is like my biggest weakness. Like ice cream is really bad. And combine the two, it's over. And you know, we both initially got like this Oreo chocolate chip melon pan that was just to die for.
Yeah.
And you know, we both agreed right then and there, we're like, we're coming back.
Yeah.
We're like, you know what, health be damned at this point. We're coming back here to eat, another melon pan on the way out.
Yeah.
So after that, we kept walking through Nara, like the main street, and we saw our honey ice cream place again. So, we saw it on the corner of our eye, Sugi Honey.
Which at this point was also probably the other best dessert we've gotten out. And so we were like, damn, we might have to get that as well.
Yeah, like what are two dumb Americans, gonna do? Two idiot Americans taking on the world. What are we gonna do about this? So I mean, we keep it in the back of our mind, we keep going, but we both agreed we wanted some type of like more substantial meal just to get us through the day. So we stopped at like another like katsu curry rice place. It's pretty good. There's nothing really, I won't get into the details of it. Pretty nice. They took card, which was good. As we said, we were running on again at this point. But the big thing about Nara is the Nara Park, where they have these deer everywhere. These deer like super cute, super friendly, and the funny thing about the deer is if you bow to the deer will bow back to you.
Yeah.
So it's really funny. They have like all these tourists there, all these I think even people in Japan like the deer, and you'll just see them bowing to the deer, and the deer will bow back, and you can feed the deer. And Nara Park also has a bunch of shrines and temples and stuff. It's really pretty, and it's really, really kind of a nice, like, I think it was like a nice capstone of our time in Japan.
Yeah.
So on the way back, we definitely did go buy Sugi Honey, and we tried the maple honey this time, which was just as good as the blueberry
honey one.
And then we tried on the way back the melon pan again. We got different flavors. I got like some almond vanilla one, which I ranked higher than the first time, but I liked less. So I was a little bit confused there.
Yeah, we do. Just as a reminder, we did this thing called Calorie Corner, where we kind of record every, pretty much every meal we have. Every once in a while, if it's like some garbage thing, we're not gonna review it. But we review everything that we have, and we come up with different scales each time. And I think the different scale messed you up because we each come up with a score after giving a scale and say it. And I was like, I'm like, that was higher than the last one.
I was like,
and he's like, and so
at that point you can't really do anything.
I think it's still averaged out to be a lower score than the previous one, because the previous one was basically like on a scale of 10 was like 9.8 or 9.7, and that one was like 9.4, which still like it was really good. Because I got a slightly different one. I got cinnamon,
yes,
and I liked mine quite a lot as well. Yeah, it was really good. And I think the last two little tidbits going to these, about this ice cream places is that the first one, the Oreo and cookies and cream melon pan, it reminded me of probably the best thing I've ever had in my entire life was when I was inebriated and had the Trader Joe's ice cream sandwich. It really reminded me of that. Like I was closing my eyes, trying to I was like, oh my God. So that in of itself, and I even before this trip started, I said that's the baseline. That is the if someone can beat that, that is incredible. And I think that was tied, know. And I wasn't if I was inebriated, it would be way above. But just being completely dead sober and having an experience just as good as that, that was massive.
That's awesome.
And then second about when we were at Sugi Honey, it was really funny because there's two people working there. They were with these employees, with these customers. And there's a door outside where you also can walk in. And Liam and I are kind of okay, how are we gonna get their attention, when they're done to order? So divide and conquer. So Liam stands inside, I'm standing at the door, and the lady's walking over to towards me. And then I'm pointing to Liam because he's in there, and she's she looks at you, and you're pointing at me.
Like the Spider-Man meme.
Yeah, and she's what? He's what do you want? I'm oh, where to get? She starts cracking up.
We definitely made her day. She was definitely laughing at us, but that's fine. We were being really stupid there, and as she was serving us, she was still laughing, and you could tell I'm happy that we cheered up a kind Japanese woman at the ice cream shop because
yeah, that was a really funny experience. But yeah, so then we went back to Osaka, and we were at this point we're like, let's just explore Osaka like at night, a different time.
Yeah.
I think there was plenty of stuff to do in that city that we haven't done yet. And I guess lastly, we'll share that last night while we were walking back. I mean, noticeably.
Well, we also have the story as well, but yeah,
which
with the money.
Oh, I mean,
yeah, we can.
We'll get to that.
Yeah.
But I'm saying like this night specifically, while we're walking back. I mean, Osaka. I don't know if we've talked about it. It definitely smells. Definitely a little dirtier.
Yeah. Noticeably so.
Yeah. So.
And in particular, it smells like something. And not to disparage the good people of Osaka and Osaka as a city, but Tokyo does not smell like a big city at all. Osaka definitely does, or Osaka. And in particular, one of the smells you associate with a big city is cigarette smoke. And oh boy, did Osaka smell like cigarette smoke.
Yeah.
There's a lot more people smoking, a lot more cigarette butts on the street. Just in general, Osaka felt a lot dirtier than Tokyo did. But I know I think we're both the same way, where the smell of cigarette smoke is just super disgusting to us. It's just and it just was not great. Everywhere we walked, we're breathing in all this cigarette smoke, and it was nasty, it was disgusting, and
the cigarette vending machines around every corner don't really help with that.
Not at all. It's it wasn't my favorite. I will definitely say I don't like that smell.
Yeah.
And again, if any smokers are watching this video and want to explain what appeals to them about smoking, what made them start everything, please share, because that smell, even if I wanted to, that smell just turns me off completely.
Yeah. So we get back to our place with a couple things to do. I know we needed to get our India visas printed out, or the forms printed out, and amongst also figuring out how to get to the airport the next morning and how much yen that would cost.
Right.
So Liam, you thought it was only going to be about 100 yen or something.
Yeah, for whatever reason, I was under the misconception that the train from where we were at in Osaka to Kansai Airport would be 100 yen. So I'm checking.
When no other fare has ever been 100 yen.
Right, or 110 yen. So I check. I'm like, oh, it's actually 990, and per person. And the problem is we have 1,500 yen left at this point, right? And I'm like, okay, you know what? This isn't the end of the world. We'll go to 7-Eleven. We'll go to an ATM.
We'll just withdraw 500 yen.
Yeah, we're 1,000 tops, right?
Yeah.
Well, guys, the problem with that plan was it was a great plan. It really was, a wonderful plan. We were feeling good about ourselves. At that 7-Eleven, I think across 7-Elevens in Japan, the minimum amount you can withdraw is 10,000 yen, which is about $70 US.
Which we weren't gonna blow through in 14 hours or something.
No. I mean, maybe we wanted to go back to Kobe and get
I guess, yeah.
But yeah, it was not good. And at this point, it's we could risk it. The fact that the train station in Kansai Airport might have a credit card machine, that's a risk, and ultimately it's a risk that I don't think either of us are willing to take. No. And so ultimately I kind of was just I bit my tongue and I withdrew the 10,000 yen. I'm I don't really have much, this is the safe choice. And so we printed it, and we're we have more yen to spend now. So there was this drink that we wanted to try called a Strong Zero.
Strong Zero, which I think at this point approximately is when we started filming the last part of this video,
right.
Which
days ago.
Yeah, days
a week ago, I think.
That was
a
couple days ago. So, yeah, we basically, trying to celebrate the fact that we got everything out of the way, because we got all the yen, we know what we're doing, we're all packed up, we're all ready to go. So we got a Strong Zero.
Yeah.
We also got a couple of food from 7-Eleven, which is, pretty good.
Strawberry cake and stuff like that.
That's pretty good. But the Strong Zero, we were told it hits like a truck, and that is true.
It does.
Very much true.
Yeah, I mean, as you can see at the beginning of the last video, both of us were still pretty under the influence, and now, of course, we're stone cold sober.
Yeah.
But yeah, Strong Zeros. I don't know why we don't I don't know why we drink White Claws in the U.S. when Strong Zeros are just better.
Infinitely better.
I don't know. Strong Zeros would be better, but yeah. At this point, I was like, well, I'm down $70 because I'm like, what am I gonna do with 10,000 yen? So it's not a great feeling, but it is what it is. There's not really much I could have done about it, but. All that being said, I think we'll end the video here.
Well, I think we can at least. Do you want to get to the trains or to the airport?
We could. Yeah. Yeah. Sure.
I mean, because I guess at least.
Well, yeah, we have to get to the airport.
Yeah, I mean, finish off Japan.
Okay.
So we basically then the next morning take that 990 yen ride to the airport. I think we get there a little bit early, but we're in this the budget airline terminal.
Yeah.
So we get there and we still have to take a bus from there, and then we finally get into that proper terminal, and there's a ton of crazy lines and stuff going on. And luckily, what we wanted to do didn't require a line.
Yeah.
Really, there were 3 people in line. So we tried, or at least you tried online, to use the restroom.
Yeah.
We tried to check us in online, which
Right.
didn't work.
And
Then we go up to the register, and it says check bags, and we're like, oh, we don't really want to check any bags. They're like, well, it's 7 kilograms
combined for your personal backpack and your suitcase.
and we're like, oh,
not great.
Yeah, trust me, 7 kilograms, 15 pounds. I think we each were packing about 20.
Yeah.
At least.
It was.
At
We had a lot.
least.
The clothes weigh a lot.
Yeah, clothes weigh a lot. I mean, it was more than that because I think it ended up being 20 kilograms each.
Yeah.
Approximately. So 40 pounds of each.
Yeah.
So yeah, but luckily the lady was super sweet.
Yeah, she
super
was.
sweet, and she just took one of your. We loaded up Liam's with, I don't know, made it 14 kilograms, and we're like, okay, our bags are now set, whatever.
Yeah.
She was fine with it, and we didn't even have to pay.
No, we didn't have to pay on that one. So that was surprising. So.
Beach air, maybe not so bad.
Right.
Which we'll talk about a little bit, I guess, in the next video.
Right.
But our luck didn't end there. Luckily, there was an exchange rate.
Yes.
So this journey ends here.
Right, and there was actually, so at this point, the worst place you can exchange money is at an airport because the exchange rates are really, or one of those currency exchange rates, right?
Yeah.
But in a pinch, they kind of serve you, and I'm like, well, I don't need this yen right now, and having U.S. dollars on me is probably good anyway, just because in a pinch, the dollar is still pretty widely accepted. You can at least trade it for local currency everywhere. So I trade it back, and I have 7,000, 8,000 yen left, and I get $50 for it, which only means I lost about maybe $6 or $7.
Yeah.
So what I thought was going to be a huge cost of living mistake actually turned out only to cost me $6 or $7, which I'm happy with. I mean, I'm $6 or $7 poorer, but at the end of the day,
But you're 50 USD richer.
Exactly. Somehow that math works out, and Braden's explained it to me, and I'm like, sure, bud.
I mean, every time we go out, we spend money, and this is the first time where we're receiving money, basically.
Even though I also gave
well, if you ignore the previous transaction where we gave USD to get yen, now we're getting USD, so it's our first positive.
Right, there you go.
Our first net of the trip. Now, obviously, still the negatives, but take it as a win.
Right.
So yeah, then we hopped on a plane, and from there on, we flew our way to our next destination.
Which, I think I've already kind of spoiled in this video, but yes, our next destination was indeed the capital of the Republic of Korea, Seoul. And the next video will be about our time in Seoul, which was a lot of fun.
Yes.
And we'll leave it there. Till next time, this is part 2 of episode 3. Hopefully episode 4 will be one just, continuous video. But until that point, take it easy and stay tuned for the next adventures of 2 idiot Americans taking on the world.
That's right.